I don't see your finger. Okay. Our topic today is we are creators living our own creation. And so I'd like to develop that and go into creation. Now, there are Christian stories throughout history. Everybody get it? Honestly, how many mysteries are there in the creation? If you go into the Indian tribes of the Southwest, in some of those stories, the creators came out of the earth. There's all kinds of stories and mysteries in the creation stories, depending on the culture and depending on the religion. In the Judeo-Christian environment, we're talking about the creation story that's in Genesis. So I'd like to kind of go through that and talk about that, okay? Because Terry talked about, in her meditation, the natural state of being. So what is the natural state of being? It would be the creation story, if we can use that terminology, okay? So, now I have to put glasses on because my eyes were created deficient. Do you understand that we've done it to ourselves? Okay, I have no one to blame but Robert. So, let's go. So in Genesis 1, and God created the heavens and the earth, okay? And I'm not going to read this whole thing because we'd be here all day. And what starts, it starts pretty much, it can be summarized in Genesis, let's say, Genesis 1:24, and God said, let the earth bring forth living creatures after its kind, cattle, people, and things, and beasts of the earth after its kind, and it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after its kind, and cattle after everything was occurred, and God saw that it was good. Now, what does good mean? In God's terminology, everybody agree? Perfect. Absolutely no flaws. Why would God create anything that wasn't perfect? It makes no sense, right? So the Bible and the creation story, as far as I've been through 3 scripture, okay, and they all talk about it was good, okay? And then you go on here, and so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him, by the way, male and female. So I don't want to go there. And it says, and that's Genesis 1:27, okay? Okay, now, and God saw that everything was made, and behold, it was very good, and the evening and the morning were the 6th day. So that's the end of creation. And the 7th day, we wait for rest. Okay? Now, you go into Genesis 2, and then you keep going, and Adam and Eve were created. And it says, but the tree of the knowledge of good and evil shall not eat of, for in the day thou eatest, therefore shalt surely die. Okay, so I want to dig into that a little bit. So here's the key. And the Lord took the man and put him in the garden, and the Lord commanded us, saying, on every tree of the garden thou mayest eat fruit, except in the middle of the tree. And the tree of knowledge and evil was in the midst of the garden. Now, the thing to understand is, although we take everything literally, and we want to take everything literally, these ancient stories were metaphors. They were allegories. They were alliterations that help describe a story. Anybody familiar with the word myths? Anybody familiar with the word stories to prove a point? Great speakers always tell a story about what they're trying to talk about, so that the story is present in your consciousness. So a garden is what? Everything's possible. In other words, a garden is everything we need. And right in the midst of the garden is the tree of knowledge. And Satan comes in and says, okay, you better not, if you do eat the tree, you're going to be just like God. Oh, what a tempting. Anybody agree? Mm-hmm. Stop and think about that. So here we have an allegorical story. And an allegorical story, number one, everything's perfect. God created it, so everything's perfect. Now, I have yet to find any place in the Bible or the scriptures that said that the environment we're living in has changed. In other words, God created perfect. At some level, it is still perfect. Everybody got it? Because if it had changed, how can God's creation change to something other than what God created? And I want you to stay with me because I'm trying to be think it through. Okay? So the idea here is everything in our environment was created perfectly. So how did it change? Because and it says we were given choice. So we take the Bible and go through it. And through it, Jesus came to correct issues. You understand that thousands of years later. But in the beginning, God created it perfectly. And then man's fall, or human's fall, was eating of the tree of knowledge, which was in the midst of them. So what does that mean? So I've been reading Charles Fillmore, believe it or not. Anybody reading this familiar with Charles Fillmore know he's way out sometimes. Okay? So I ran into this, and it's really thanks to Reverend Velma, who's teaching Truth Talks and Truth by Charles Fillmore on Thursday. Okay? So I just want to, I'm going to dig into this a little bit. And I hate to admit it, but I've got all kinds of, see all the yellow marking? Okay, so I'm going to read it. And let's say, this is on page 31, paragraph 13. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are the inherent birthright of every one of us. So if we're a child of God, what do we inherit? Everything God is, period. Yes or no? See, and we have to look at that the way it really is. And then it goes on and says, we exist to that end, and by our constant effort to attain perpetual joy, we recognize it as our natural state, which is what you said this morning, okay? So if it is our natural state, what happened? How come it's not our natural state now? Okay? So he goes on, and he's talking about, okay, if there's a place where everything is good, where we have a natural state, where is it? And how do we contact it? And it goes on, it says, but the geography of the universe, heaven, has not been authoritatively marked. So where is heaven? Okay, and everybody talks about some, we're going to go in sweet by and by, is one of the hymns I remember, anybody else? So there's always that promise that later, sometime in the future, when you die, if you're good, you're going to go to heaven. However, where is heaven? Would you agree it's like we made up stories? It's God's floating on a cat towel out there. And we know he's not out there with the Chinese balloons, okay? So, but in the geography of the universe, heaven has not been marked. Jesus Christ, of all of those claiming intimate acquaintance with spiritual things. This is Charles Fillmore's, because he was an academic, he was a nut, he studied. So he uses that academic language. So what he's saying here is, Jesus Christ is one of the few people in the world who has said he knows about these things, gave heaven a definite location. So should we listen to him? I would say yes. Then it goes on and says, he often referred to the Father dwelling in him. Yes, the Father within, he doeth the work. It's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And then he's also told others that the Spirit of God dwelt in them. Did he do that? Yep. Okay? As a climax, he defined located heaven within you. And man has tried to change that thing, like some people have reconfigured it to say in the midst of you. Well, where's the midst of you? In the middle of you. So stop and think about this. He goes on, talks here, and I'm really, you don't want to hear me read this whole thing. But he goes on and on and on. He said, even metaphysicians have delved into the abstractions of the mind. The abstractions of the mind. The mind is creative and makes up stories. And the thing to understand is there's perfection here, our natural state, and then there's a state and rules over here that the mind has made up. So the abstractions of the mind is, well, how do I explain this position when I don't know where it is? So we've made up all kinds of stories and metaphors and everything else. Even, I hate to say this, because we've been delving into it. I even have a daughter that has a PhD in it. The mind psychology is man's made-up story about how the mind works. And we have anybody been online lately and gotten involved in new thought environment stuff? And we call it self-care, self-development. There's all kinds of things out there. And there's all kinds of wonderful stuff. But when it comes down to it, does anybody address the natural state that we are? So if there's a natural state, there must be a way to incorporate that and become that natural state. Make sense? However, it is a spiritual thing, not a material thing. Okay? So, we are seeking again the kingdom of heaven where all things shall be added, and it is proper that we should know that kingdom is. Okay? Now, here's what he said. You ready? And I'm going to paraphrase it. Everything has a center. It's like, if I look at Elvis, okay? I know Elvis in his corporeal, which means his body has flesh around the body, but it has flesh around the central point. In other words, you look at something, you know there's something driving that animate object. There's something deciding that it can move. There's right now something telling me what to say. There's all those issues going on. So we know inherently everybody has a center. So if you really stop and think about the center, everything has a center. Because you right now are made up of atoms, molecules, that have a center, and then they have things rotating around them. The planets, and then we have a planet, we have sun, and then we have planets rotating around it, and then we have a galaxy, the solar system, and the solar system rotates around the galaxy center. So everything has a center, and that center drives everything around it. So, when Jesus said, don't partake of the tree of knowledge which is in the midst of you, what was he saying? Maybe it's an allegorical conversation. Jesus didn't say it. It was back in Genesis. And at that point in time, what was in the center of us? What is involved in the center of you is the tree of knowledge, okay, of good and bad, etc. So you now have choice. And what have we been given as a human being? We have been given the power of choice. And once we have the power of choice, we evidently decided as a human race that we knew better. And we decided to separate ourselves from God. So this is the great separation that occurred someplace back in history, and it's in our genes that have been down to us. And we're still making up stories where the kingdom of heaven is and how to change it and how to get it to where I am. And this is some of the path I've taken. Okay? You wouldn't believe the crazy workshops I've been through. You name it. Madeline and I did every workshop you can think of. Okay? Now, we haven't had one for what, 5-6 years now. So anyway, things are changing. But the idea behind it is at the center of you is an energy which is perfect and whole, that has its original code of the natural state. And somehow, if we can get into that center and embrace the center and become that center, the rest of it starts working. If that makes sense. That's what I've been dealing with. Now, I realize that this isn't everyday stuff, okay? And I understand that. However, where are we going? What are we doing? We are on a path back to the Father's house. And what is that path? And the path, as far as I can tell, we are in the Christian faith. And we're using Jesus as an example of that path. And he gave us the ideas going back. And what he said is, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy name, or whatever, okay? And love thy neighbor as thyself, which is totally counterintuitive to what we learned to do. Anybody agree? Stop, think about it. How often do words come up like hate? And what is our culture like right now? How's our political situation? Even the China balloons created situations. Okay? So here we are. How do I get back to that place? So, Charles Fillmore. Frankly, I hadn't read this before. This is amazing stuff to me. Okay? Every atom in the human body is like a miniature planet revolving about its own invisible center, and all the atoms revolve around the great center within. I have discovered this to be an absolute fact in my own experience. I have, by persistent practice, learned to drop my attention from the head to a point under the heart. Okay? This is separating the I am that I am, which is the Christ, which is the God, which is the center of Christ, and connecting it with the universal or spiritual consciousness. So it's something that occurs automatically when I finally figure out where God is. And God's not out in the cloud. God is literally within us, each of us at the center of the heart. Now it's called focus. And the meditation systems that we have available to us, they all have different focus points. A lot of them talk about focus. I was trained in Kriya Yoga from Yama, and they want me to focus at the pineal gland, okay, which is within the middle of the base of here, and it's worked for years. But all of a sudden, I'm learning that I have to drop into my heart, because that's where the center of my being is. Okay? Now it goes on. Drop my attention from my head to a point under the heart. This is separated. When my I am touches this inner center, there springs into it its consciousness, a wonderful vibration, and to every part of the body, strong currents of energy are transmitted. Okay, I want to read this. This is Charles Fillmore, who created, if anybody's ever been to the village up there, 1,300 acres, beautiful, absolutely millions of dollars in buildings, a worldwide focus that now has, the latest count, by the way, is 637 ministries in the United States, and I think 110 internationally. And a movement that's just now starting, because this stuff, when we first got involved, we had to hide what we did. We couldn't talk about it, especially with our family. Anybody? So, and here's what he said. I am, after learning all this, but a novice in this inner exploration. But I have penetrated far enough to know that it is the undiscovered country for which all seeking. I have not only found the invisible center of my consciousness, but many sub-centers. And that's the 12 powers of man that he brought in. So, where is the kingdom of heaven? See, we talk about it, but where is it? And are we practicing it? I was really fascinated with the daily word this morning. And I'm going to go back to it. And this is Myrtle Fillmore. Now, you've got to understand that Myrtle Fillmore was really being unity. Okay? Charles was a skeptic. Okay? And the stories are that he really didn't believe it. He couldn't. He said, boy, that sounds good, but I'm not sure about that. And then he spent years studying all the different religions and came together. But Myrtle, God bless her, just believed right from the beginning. And when she heard that statement, okay, take inspiration. I too am a living expression of God, is what she believed. So she started on this, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness, which is the healing conversation that you were bringing in. Okay? Now, I don't know whether you heard this or not, but after 2 years of persistent health affirmations, meditation, prayer, and practice, Myrtle was healed. Yeah. How much time?
2 years.
2 years. See, we expect things automatically. When I first got involved, I expected, and it was money for me, and I talked about it, I expected $1,000 bills floating out the heavens. Today's it would be $100 bills, and never have $1,000 bills. However, it takes time. Now, here's the issue, and it's right here in the creation story. Everything was created perfectly. The reason it's not perfect is human beings have the right and choice to think, speak, and act act upon whatever we choose to act upon. So, I always spent some time talking about the words and how words mean things. We're going to talk about that next week. But words have vibration to them, and what are we in? We're in a world of vibration. And so the key to it is there's a vibration within our center that is Christ itself. So it's learning to get involved in that vibration and bring it into our life. Now, the world has created all kinds of systems and deals. Okay? However, Charles Fillmore's conversation was simply dwell in the place where God is, which is where? Within your heart. And you can hear what's happening, but in other words, Valerie and Terry and others are trained to look at the heart as the center of the Christ. Okay, so the problem is becoming attuned to that. Now, it took Myrtle Fillmore 2 years of, can you believe she really meant it? So she was night and day, I'm sure. Now, I wasn't there, I don't know. But can you imagine a concentrated effort for 2 years, and after 2 years, something happened? So you get it? It takes time to change the consciousness from the outside world, the outside rules, and we're still trying to run life on the outside rules, which is retribution, getting angry at next door neighbor, not liking people in another party, not liking people with this, or finding problems and creating more separation. So the kingdom literally is love yourself, and then here's the key. If we are creators, like I said earlier, we are creating everything right now. So we are living, we're living in a world of our own creation because we're the creator. Now, if you really believe that we're co-creators with God, how come I live in a world I don't like? And that's what we were talking about earlier. We have to admit where we are and let that be. And forgive ourselves, which we're talking about, look at all the different classes. Okay, so where's the issue? It's within me. Okay, kingdom of heaven is where?
Within.
Within. So it's learning a new set of rules. And I don't know about you, but you ever notice how your habits stay? I've noticed recently, what happened? Well, it's like we had music. We didn't have music this morning. What are we going to do? There was a panic. Okay? But we're so used to having music, and I forgot to tell Natalie. So we're so embraced. We're so deeply put into this world of rules that we live by, which is the outer rules of the human consciousness. And the spiritual consciousness has different rules. Okay? And it's like, it's like knocking on the door and nobody answers, and we keep knocking on the door instead of figuring out why nobody's opening the door. Okay? So maybe I've been operating on a set of rules that aren't designed to be spiritual rules. So it's a reconditioning, it's a re-looking at it. And I spent years trying to do it my way, and when I found out about how the subconscious mind works, I decided, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I was still trying to run by the world's rules, okay? So it's really giving it all up and starting over again is what we're talking about. You want me to read the rest of this? No. I'm almost finished. I really don't have too much else to say. Where we're going from now is, what can we do to enter the Christ within, to be there locally? Okay, so we're going to start looking at focus. What do we focus on? When we have a problem, what do? Now, I've realized all of a sudden that when I have a problem, I start trying to figure it out. I go back into my history and what happened in the past. I also go to my training, and I'm educated, do you know that? So I have to go to my education, and that's all the world's rules. Okay, so I've had to realize that there's nothing for me to do except go to the kingdom within, live there, and allow it to correct itself. Do you hear that? We are so programmed to believe believe that we have the answer somewhere instead of surrendering it to the Christ. Cat Valley can't wait to talk.
This is, well, I mean, it's so crazy how almost every Sunday, what we study in class, then you talk about it.
Well, I
And it's
don't
just
read
like
that. No,
the synchronicity, but it's just, in a very real sense, what we do not have may be killing us. We worry about paying our bills, about our security in the future. We hurry because we believe there's not enough time. We burn out for lack of energy. Yada, yada, yada. You know, we fail because we believe we don't have what it takes. At every turn, our well-being is held hostage or liberated by what we make our experiences mean.
Yeah.
So it's up to us. It's like, how do we look at the world? Are we
So-
using our inner resources, which
Yeah.
you're going to talk about
See, we're going to
next
be
week,
talking
or
about
are we
it,
living in fear?
because we do have inner resources, but living in fear, and fear is what shuts it down. Matter of fact, believe it or not, the first chapter in that, he talks about we create bacteria and virus and all that stuff. So you know, we talk about it's outside, I'm a victim. Okay? Evidently, we allow that to occur. And I hate to share that with me. So, and if you look at the world, people are ready to blame others for anything that happens. We've created a world of victims, we really have. And I'm understanding that I've been part of that victim. Still working my way out of it. Because like Myrtle, we need to really, really work on and understand that I am the creator of my world. Because God created a perfect world, and I'm here to live in that perfect world and learn how to handle it. Sherry.
Every time you say the word perfect, the skin on the
I know.
hair on the back of my neck. Because one of the personal revelations I had 10, 15 years ago is that I spent the first half of my life believing that my work was being perfected. There was something in me, about me, that wasn't quite there. And so the spiritual work of this life, I thought, was to strive to attain that perfection. And I think a lot of us are programmed that way.
That's a religious message.
The reality that I come to understand is that I am that perfection. And the work of this life that I agreed to was to come and experience what it means to accept that.
Thank you. See, now we need to then talk about coming back. Okay, and what happens? So we're opening doors, all these doors. Okay? And there are things that we don't talk about because they're controversial. Okay?
Those places where I feel lack or absence or I've fallen short,
Yeah.
the only reality there is that I have stopped focusing on that which I already am.
See, the great I am. I am. I am that. Thank you. You got it? And there's more to say. There's like so much there. It's like, yeah, and that's our job. Now, our job isn't to go running around shouting in a bullhorn, hey, you're wrong. Our job is to be within ourselves. And it's like, I think it was Elvis was talking about understanding that it's not out there, it's up to me to be who I am and let that radiation occur. Because we live in we are an energetic being learning to access the perfect energy being within us. That's where we are. So I appreciate you, I love you. We're on a ride together. This is an energy situation. And as the energies get better and better, things are changing in the world. I don't know whether you know it or not. All you have to do is look around. More and more people are waking up. More and more people are being aware. On the edges, is it perfect in my opinion? No. Because we're still dealing with guilt. and not good enough, I have to be this. And we've had people set goals for us, or things we should be but aren't realistic, because they're not of us. And everybody has different religions, everybody has different genders, everybody has different everything. So everybody's journey is what's in their heart, what's in their center of being, what's in their Christ. So thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Okay. Next week we talk about words, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.